Hello and welcome everyone. It's been a while since the last update. There was a micro update not too long ago. But we have a lot to talk about in update 6 of the Red Knight game development. So let's just get into it. So firstly, let's just talk over all the new features here in the overview. I will also leave timestamps in the description and also chapters in the little scroll bar so you can find whatever you want to see. So, new features in the game include a completely remade movement system, combat system and health system. All of these components have been made from scratch compared to the last time you saw the project. There's been some benefits in this and there's also been some side effects to this. Obviously one of those being it took a little longer to get here. We've also got plenty of new designs. Among others, we've redesigned Red Knight, I know, once again. But we also have some new designs for a enemy faction and also the police in our little world here. I'm also gonna talk about some other stuff later. Some about how we got to this point and how we're gonna get to the next milestone. I've experimented with some different ways of working and I want to talk about that for a little bit too. With that out of the way, let's just get straight into all the new features. So the first system we have is the new damage system, which has been coded completely from scratch and is independent from the built-in Unreal damage system. We have 4 main types of damage, one of them being immediate, which is stuff like blunt damage, being hit and being shot, or explosions. Then we have delayed damage, where that can be stuff like poison and the likes, where you would take damage but it would repeat over time and may not be an immediate effect. Then we have what I like to call resistant damage, which is stuff like drowning and electricity, where we have a meter which determines for how long you can take that damage until you actually take real damage. Then the last one we have is armor initial damage, which isn't a nice name and should probably find a better name for it, but this can be stuff like fire, cold and also acid, which would first burn or destroy your armor and then destroy your health. Some other additional notes to the health and armor system is that health regenerates over time dependent on the difficulty, which armor does not. Armor needs to be repaired at certain repair stations throughout the game. The electricity resistance and oxygen meter will automatically regenerate when not taking that type of damage. For the movement systems, we have climbing and vaulting, which will work with anything that we decide to in the game. It is a very dynamic and flexible system and has been shown to have a few bugs, but is pretty reliable for the most part. Crouching, sliding and flipping has also been added, where crouching allows you to go low, sliding is the same as a crouch, although much shorter in time, but it keeps your momentum compared to crouching. Flipping has no gameplay as of yet, but it does just look cool. Then we have wall grabbing, where you can jump up on a wall and you can sit on the wall for how long you want. Then we have wall jumping, where you can jump off of the wall you are currently grabbing. There is also gliding and grappling, which have been completely overhauled. Gliding is the most advanced systems of these, I would say, and is much more accurate to what we initially wanted than what we had before. The previous gliding system wasn't satisfying in any way, but the new one satisfied me a lot more. The grappling system is also different, but will be reworked. It's planned to be reworked soon. Currently you will only get pulled slightly in the direction you are grappling to, but we want to get back to it being that you would actually sit at the location you grapple to, like in the previous versions. The last system we have, or major system we have, is the combat system. The combat system has been reworked the most from the previous versions. In the previous version we had a very Dark Souls-esque system relying on dodging and hitting, and a very basic AI along with that. This time it is a lot more advanced, although it's still very early in development. A lot of changes and expansions will still be made to these systems, but here are the basics. So when you enter the combat mode, you will have a red ring around you. This ring indicates how far your attack reaches. You will only snap to enemies in this reach, and you will only snap to the enemy you are locked onto. You can let the game also lock to the nearest enemy, or you can choose specifically who you want to lock onto. Then you have your attack, which will just snap you to the enemy given them being in range, and then attack them. Then you have air attacks, which have a broader range and has higher weight, but they will take longer to execute, ideally. Enemies can block your attacks, which would cause them guard damage. This guard damage would, when the guard meter is at the bottom, they will no longer be able to block and will be in a broken state, where you can instantly finish them off. This also applies to the player. The player also has a certain amount of guard, and if this guard meter is empty, they will also be very weakened and not able to attack for a set amount of time. And that's where parrying comes in, because it's also possible to parry an attack. Parrying an attack will do major damage to the enemy's guard and preserve your own, although this requires timing and precision. So we redesigned Red Knight once again, and we have a few reasons for this. We didn't feel that the previous design showed off the exact aspects we want of his character. He didn't really look that menacing. There wasn't a lot of anger, suggestive things in his design. So in this new design we've tried a more spiky design with a lot of sharp edges going down, hopefully also to almost make him aerodynamic. We've included more lights on the suit compared to before, where there was only really 2 points, and we've even come up with multiple color patterns for it. And as you also saw, we already have the model for this, so we're pretty set on this design, but there are some iterations and small changes that might be made along the way. This is not something I can guarantee yet, but we are pretty set on this general design pattern going forward. The next 2 designs we have are made by Austin. And the first bunch we have is the Smelters gang. The Smelters gang is an enemy faction that will play a part in the game, and they are centered around a lot of fire and fire-related weaponry and such. This is also reflected in the color patterns and also some of their enemy types. I won't get too much into this as we haven't settled completely on this, but the enemy types they do have fodder, they do have the mugger, the gunner, the buck, and then they also have 2 additionals, being the special classes. For each faction in the game we have planned 2 specialist classes who will be extra dangerous and have some unique moves that no one else will. These classes are of course rarer to meet in the open world than the more regular classes will be. But these specialist classes here is the Hotshot and the Wildfire. The Hotshot has a fully automatic machine gun, a lot like the Gunner, but additionally he also has a flamethrower attached to it, which allows him to deal pretty high damage when close enough. And this is fire damage, so it will tear through your armor if you're not careful. Then we have the Wildfire, who has a grenade launcher armed with napalm grenades. He will also destroy through your armor, but also lock down areas, making it harder for you to just dodge in. We have thought about a lot of ways of how to counter these, and we will get more into that when we are closer to them being fully developed. For the other faction, which has been designed also by Austin, we have the Police of Europika. The police design is fairly simple but effective. As you can see, they have a clear color pattern, and they have their own classes too. They do not have the same classes as everyone else. They have the fodder, not represented here, the mugger, but this time it's not just a mugger, it's actually an officer, and there's a slight difference in the officer's design. The officer will be able to call in reinforcements from that faction, so these will become a higher priority target and more threatening towards the player compared to a regular mugger. They then also have the gunner, who is like any other gunner in the game, and then lastly the buck with the shotgun. So now I just want to get into how I got to where I am with this update, and how I've been working before this and how I'm gonna work after this, because I've had a few issues with it. So before this new update here, it was very much just I work whenever I want to or can, and that worked fine in a lot of ways, but it went very slowly because I would just fix stuff or do things that are not that important. While this time, for this update, I tried setting a goal and then having daily goals to achieve that milestone, which I have. I did do it within the given time, but there is one big problem with the way I've been working with this. I've been just dashing down features, just having a bunch of them, and then I've just went through and made them all, which isn't bad in of itself. I have been productive enough, and sure enough the features are there and they work, but the game right now feels more like a tech demo and less like an actual game. And this is where I come into the new work ethic I want to work with, or at least try out. Because I am currently doing a school project on level design, and in this project, which I've been working on for about a week now, maybe 1.5 weeks now, that project feels much more like a game than the entirety of Red Knight does. So obviously there is a slight problem here with Red Knight having been in development for quite a while now, but not really feeling like a game. So the way forward is that I want to just say, from the start of the game, I'm gonna go down the story path, program all the features needed, maybe not with the final layer of polish and stuff, but make everything work, and then just start like blocking out the game right now and not later. The idea of making all the tools and then making the game is not bad, but honestly I just haven't felt like I'm progressing with a game. I've just been programming stuff, and it's not something that I'm entirely proud of showing off in a way, because it doesn't feel like I went anywhere from when I started. But yeah, so with that out of the way, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for listening to me ramble and demonstrate my little game so far, and I hope you'll tune in next time. So see ya and stay safe.